Welcome everybody. My name is Jennifer Thomas Stark, and I'm the Director of International Study at Wellesley. And I appreciate you coming out on a Tuesday afternoon to learn about our study abroad program at the University of Nicosia in Cyprus. We've got a representative from the program here who's going to run the session. And then I'll stick around and be available for any Wellesley specific questions. Turn it over to you, Matt.
All right. Hello, everybody. Yeah, thanks again for stopping in today. My name is Matt Spores. I'm the enrollment manager here for the University of Nicosia's Global Semesters program. So the program that handles all of our North American study abroad students. Today I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Semester in Cyprus program. It's a program I'm very familiar with. I'm actually an alum of this program as well. So I'll go ahead now and I'm going to share my screen. And what I like to do, Cyprus is a location, certainly this was the case for myself when I had first learned about it. It's a location that a lot of Americans really just don't know too much about. So I do like to start with a little bit of an introduction about Cyprus, and then I'll tell you a little bit about our university, and then some specifics about our study abroad program in particular. All right, so Cyprus. For those of you that don't know, Cyprus is a Mediterranean island. It's to the south of Greece and Turkey. If Americans do know about Cyprus, a lot of the time they think that it's a Greek island. And it makes sense why they think that. If you look on a map, it looks like it might be a Greek island. Also, culturally, they are very Greek. In Cyprus, they speak Greek. They eat a lot of Greek food. They drink coffee till way too late at night, just like the Greeks do. However, Cyprus is a sovereign country. It is part of the EU. Cyprus was ranked by the World Health Organization as the safest country in the world for young adults to travel to. So like I said, Americans might not know much about Cyprus, but that is certainly not the case for Europeans. This is a big tourist destination for Europeans. We get about 4 million tourist visitors annually, predominantly from Europe. The reasons being, it is a beautiful location. It is the sunniest country in all of Europe. We get about 330 days of sun every year. We have over 20% of the top beaches in all of Europe on the island. There's also a lot of history as well. There's about 12,000 years of human history on the island. Some of the oldest known human settlements in the entire world can be found in Cyprus, which is pretty amazing because it is just a small island in the Mediterranean. I did mention that they speak Greek in Cyprus. However, Cyprus is also a former British colony, and it was British all the way up until the 1960s. So because of that, English is widely spoken on the island. The official stat is something like 80 to 81% of the population speaks English fluently. And that stat for our students is even a little bit skewed. There's some remote towns and villages where English really just isn't spoken at all. But for the most part, where students are spending time, such as the capital of Nicosia, where we're located, the other large towns and cities, and of course the beach towns, just about everybody speaks English. As I mentioned, I did a semester in Cyprus myself. I still actually live there most summers, and I really don't know much Greek because I really just don't need it to get around. So it really helps, I think, with culture shock. You never really find yourself in a situation where you're lost and you can't ask for directions or for help or things like that. Our capital of Nicosia, the New York Times kind of did an expose about the top locations to visit in the world a few years ago. And we actually landed at number 12. Nicosia landed at the number 12th place in the entire world to visit. So that was super exciting for us. And the city itself, as well as Cyprus as a whole, it's very cosmopolitan. It's very European. There is a lot of hustle and bustle. They definitely are very stylish. But at the same time, it still is an island in the Mediterranean. So it still has that laid back atmosphere. For instance, if somebody invites you to dinner for 7 o'clock, it is common practice to show up at 7:15. So things still do run a little bit slower. So it is a nice mix of, cosmopolitan, hustle and bustle, and also just a laid back island atmosphere as well. Nicosia is a very cost-effective capital city, especially when you're comparing it to other European capitals. Whenever I'm working with students and having them budget for food costs or just going out expenses in general, the cost of living is about the same as it is here in the States. So even though it's on the euro, which is about, so the exchange rate's a little low right now for the US dollar, it still equates to about the same cost of living as living here in the States, which is really nice. One other quick fact that isn't on this slide, but I do like to tell our students. So if you go on our program for a semester, as long as you have a valid US or Canadian passport, you do not need to get a visa for this program. The visa process can be extensive at times. Just takes a while to get it to get the visa. So again, with our programs, you do not need to get a visa as long as you have a valid US or Canadian passport. A couple other quick facts about our capital city where we're located. So about 300,000 people live in Nicosia. About 30,000 of those people are college students. So about 10% of the population are college students. So by no means is Nicosia a college town. But at the same time, the city is very accommodating to college students because there's a lot of them. There's over 1,000 different restaurants, very vibrant social scene. So we have coordinators there that are just there to work with our US students. They're always sending emails out to our students about cool things going on in the area, cool things going on in the downtown area. So you always feel like you have a pulse on what's going on in the capital. There's also a very vibrant sports scene as well. Just like the rest of Europe, they're very big into soccer. There's 2 professional soccer teams that play on the island. The one plays just outside of the city limits. Even if you don't like soccer, going to a European soccer match is an experience all in itself. There really isn't much like it. And it's really accessible. It's like 15, 20 minutes from the university to get to the stadium. So it's definitely something we always recommend our students check out. Another quick fact about Nicosia, we were ranked last year coming into this year as the #1 small European city of the future based on human capital and lifestyle. Essentially, it's a fairly wealthy city. And as I mentioned before, it is an extraordinarily safe location. All right, so a little bit about who we are. Again, we're the University of Nicosia. We go by UNIC for short. We are the largest university on the island. We are also the largest university in all of Southern Europe that teaches primarily in English. So during any given semester, there are over 400 courses that are offered that are accessible to all of our North American students. We have about 14,500 students at the university. The breakdown is as follows. Depending on the year, anywhere from 300 to 500 US study abroad students doing semester or summer programs. We have about 2,500 European study abroad students. Fun fact about that, the EU actually caps us at the number of students we're allowed to have. We have a lot more students from Europe that try to study abroad at our university. The EU caps us at that number. And then the rest of our students are our local students. That is both our Cypriot students as well as our Greek students. Some of the programs we're most known for in the region, definitely we're very strong in medicine, health sciences in general, and STEM. We do have a medical school at the university. It's partnered with St. George's University of London, which is the second oldest medical college in the UK. It's where Gray, who wrote Gray's Anatomy, is actually a professor. We're very strong in international relations. If you look on a map about where Cyprus is located, we're kind of the last safe window into the Middle East. So a lot of diplomats and dignitaries come to the university. They have meetings and discussions and panels. So we're very strong in particular about Eastern Mediterranean studies. We're very strong in accounting. We have more chartered accountants per capita in Cyprus than anywhere else in the entire world. Our architecture department wins tons of international awards, and we're #1 in the world for blockchain technology. This next bullet point is, I think it's very important. This is something I didn't consider too much when I was looking into a study abroad program, but it ended up being a huge aspect, to my my semester abroad. And it's the fact, again, I mentioned that there's over 400 courses taught in English. So of course, they're the courses that you're going to be taking, but they're also the courses that the local students are taking, as well as the other European study abroad students. So for me and for a lot of students, especially for me, the first half of the semester, I was definitely hanging out a lot with the American students. It was my comfort zone. It was the first time that I had left the country. But the second half of the semester, I was playing soccer with the local Cypriot students and the Greek students. I celebrated so many different holidays with other European friends that I had made from literally all over Europe. And a lot of that, I think, is because I got to take the courses with them. So it was a really organic way to meet them and to meet people from all over the world. So I think that's a big part of studying abroad is actually meeting people from all over the world. Another important aspect of our university, so we're a private university. We actually predate the first public university on the island by over a decade. So when we first got our accreditation, it actually came from the US first. Our first regional accreditation was an American accreditation. So because of that, this was not done for our study abroad students, but it's certainly beneficial for them now. Our system is more of an American system rather than a European system, which you might expect. So 4.0 grading scale, a typical American bachelor's degree program, 4-year bachelor's degree with 2 semesters every year. And all of our syllabi to all of our courses are actually listed online. And it tends to be easy for students to get courses pre-approved, and for universities in general just to have a lot of courses pre-approved for us, just because the courses tend to match fairly well. I'll show you a picture of campus in a second. Again, there's over 160 different degree programs at the university. So this is kind of a shot of where the university sits in comparison to the rest of the city. So we are in the southwestern part of the city. I'll point out just a couple things here to give you some bearings. These bottom 3 buildings right here were the first buildings that were built on campus. They're mostly used now for lectures, and there's 3 really large lecture halls in these buildings as well. So you'll definitely have classes in some of those buildings. This tall building right here was the first student residence that was built. There's actually 4 of these buildings. They're all architecturally different, but they're all student residences. So it's just our housing for our students. This one right here is called 6. It was built about 2 years ago. This is where our US students stay. So everything is very close to campus for our US students. Everything is very walkable in general. In your day-to-day life, you do not need to take public transportation to get to class, to go grocery shopping. There's actually a mall right here with a 2-story grocery store, different cafes, restaurants, banks, things like that. Everything is very close to the student residences. So again, very walkable. This is just a quick ranking that had come out recently for us. We were ranked in the 300 to 400 tier for business and economics in the world. So the top 300 to 400 universities. So in the bottom are just some of our university partners that also fit into that bracket. So our semester program is a comprehensive program. So included in the program is your tuition, your housing. We do what's called our 7-city tour of Cyprus, and I'll actually kind of walk you through the different places that we go. We have coordinators, as I mentioned, that are there just for our North American students. In fact, we have an office in Cyprus just for our American students. There's about 10 people that work in the office. It's also where our coordinators are working. So if you ever if you ever need directions, or if you need to find a doctor, or you need anything, our coordinators are always there for you to help you out. They're definitely there for 24/7 emergency support. Also included in your program fees is insurance. We do a full orientation upon arrival. We host welcome and farewell dinners for our students. You get a local cell phone as well. Essentially they call it a top-up phone, where you could add money. It comes loaded with, I believe, €5. So you could use it as soon as you land in Cyprus. If you want to call home, you could absolutely use it to call home. But the local phones are really useful for communicating with the other students and our coordinators as well, just because it's so cheap. I believe texting is free if you're texting Cypriot numbers, and if you're calling Cypriot numbers, it's like a penny a minute. So they're really useful for that. You could use them to call home, but what a lot of students do is they'll bring their smartphone, turn their data off, and just use Messenger or WhatsApp or something to communicate with people back home, because there is Wi-Fi just about everywhere. The residences, the university, a lot of the shops and stuff all have Wi-Fi. I also do a lot of our pre-departure advising. So I work with students up until they leave for the program, then at which point, obviously, our coordinators are working with students. All right. So I'm going to skip over some of the stuff that's a little bit irrelevant at this point. So the regions of Cyprus. So I mentioned before that we have what's called our 7-city tour. This is all included in your program fees. So the transportation, when there's weekend trips, the hotels are included. So the first place that we take students is around Nicosia. This is where you're going to be living. So we show you around, obviously, the university area. We show you campus. We show you where everything is located, the bookstore, the library, the different buildings where you'll have classes. And then we also take you downtown. So downtown Nicosia reminds me a lot of kind of Soho, so Southern Manhattan. It's where all the cool hip new restaurants open up, the fashion designers. It's the place where all of like the students will hang out at night or on the weekends. So we take students here really early on to kind of show them where everything's at. We do a couple tours of museums and things like that. So that's obviously a day trip. Limassol is another one of our day trips. As you can see, it is on the coast. There's the sea right there. Limassol is the second largest city on the island. So we visit a new marina that was just built where they park these huge mega yachts. We visit the old town of Limassol. With all of our trips where you're learning about like the history of different things, we actually have guides that go on these trips. So you get to learn a ton. You get to ask a ton of questions. The guides are obviously very informed because they're all locals. So you get to learn a ton about the history of all the different locations that you're visiting. Larnaca is your first introduction to Cyprus because this is where the major airport is located. This is where our students will fly into. There's also some beautiful beaches here. One of my favorite beaches is in Larnaca. It's called Mackenzie Beach. It's actually really close to where this picture is taken. You can kind of hang out in the sea and look up, and the planes are literally flying right above you because the airport's like less than a mile away. So it's a cool place to hang out for the day for sure. So we take students to visit Larnaca. The Throdos Mountains. So I like to call this my ecological juxtaposition of Cyprus because it's not a beach. So it's actually a really, really steep mountain range right in the center of the island. And depending on the time of the year, the mountains are actually snow-capped. So you might be swimming in the sea and then take a trip to the top of the mountains, and you can go skiing or snowboarding as well. So we do a day trip here through a nature preserve, which I'll show you kind of where that starts in a second. Kyrenia is another day trip. So this is a port city in the northern part of Cyprus. We visit a castle before we get to Kyrenia. Again, ton of history you get to learn about. Lots of beautiful architecture to get pictures with. A nice day trip. Paphos is one of our 2 weekend trips. So Paphos is, as you can tell by the water, on the coast. So it's a town on the coast. It's definitely a serene, very relaxing town. Paphos is famous for 2 things. One, Aphrodite's Rock, which is the rock in the top left-hand corner here. And it's called Aphrodite's Rock because Greek mythology says that Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty, was actually born from the sea foam in Cyprus, which is why Cyprus is known as the island of love. Paphos is also famous for some ancient mosaics that have been uncovered as well. So again, this is one of our weekend trips. Ayia Napa is the other one of our weekend trips. If I polled all the students who've ever gone on our programs, my guess is that Ayia Napa would be the most popular spot. It's a location where our students tend to visit on their own multiple times during the semester. Ayia Napa is one of the top beach towns in all of Europe. I mentioned that we get about 4 million tourist visitors a year. A lot of them are going to Ayia Napa. There's just so much to do in Ayia Napa. During the day, obviously, you can hang by the sea, go swimming. You can go snorkeling. You can swim through sea caves, ATV through nature preserves. They have like little day cruises that you could take, lots of shopping, things like that. And then at night, there's a very vibrant nightlife as well. A lot of famous DJs will actually come to Ayia Napa to perform. So it's just a really popular spot. Again, we have a lot of our tourists are here in Ayia Napa. Also, before I forget, so this trip, you actually stay at a 4-star resort on the water. So it's very nice. Famagusta is actually, for the most part, a ghost town. So I'll give you the 30-second history lesson. Again, if you go on this program, you'll learn the real long history of Famagusta. But as I mentioned, Cyprus was a former British colony. When it got its independence in the 60s, there was kind of a power vacuum. There was nobody really there to take control of Cyprus. So the Greeks staged a coup to try to take Cyprus as a Greek island. The Turkish did not like that. They invaded the northern third of Cyprus. They annexed this town called Famagusta. They did not let anybody go in, no Greeks, no Turkish, nobody. And they did so as a bargaining chip because at the time, Famagusta was like the beach town. That's where everybody went on a holiday. So nobody's been allowed in there since the early 70s. They allowed somebody to go in about 5 years ago, and they said the dinner plates were still on the table in the hotel when everybody was forced to leave. So you could still go swimming in the water, but then you turn around, and as far as the eye could see, there's these massive hotels that are kind of just slowly eroding away. because nobody's been allowed in them since the 70s, the early 70s. So we do visit, obviously we go to the beach, we go to the town where you're still allowed in, visit some historical places, and actually a really cool development. A couple months ago, the Turkish government finally said, all right, we're going to allow the original landowners of the different hotels to start redeveloping Famagusta. So it's definitely an interesting time to go to Famagusta. It's a very recent development, and nothing like this has happened, since the 70s. So it'll be an interesting time to see it. Potoras is another beach town, as you can see. It's actually on the same peninsula as Ayia Napa. It's on the other side of the peninsula. Fun fact, this is especially true in the summer, but the Cypriots don't really worry about the weather, especially in the summer. It's warm and sunny. So they'll actually look at the wind, and depending which way the wind is blowing, they'll go to one beach or the other because they like their water to be completely flat. If there's any ripples, they call them waves, and they don't like it. So that always makes me laugh. They're very spoiled with their beaches. Again, this is Limassol. I mentioned that we visit here. And another picture of the mountain village in the Thordos Mountains. This is where the nature preserve hike starts. So there's cool places to eat. There's a little winery here, and again, we start walking. Tons of beautiful pictures to take on that trip. Speaking of beautiful pictures, this is Nisi Beach in Ayia Napa. This was the most Instagrammed beach in the entire world. I believe it was last year. So again, this is that beach town where we have the 2-night stay. Everybody needs to visit Nisi Beach. It is still to this day the most beautiful beach I've ever seen. All right, housing. So obviously the picture on the left is 6 zoomed in. So all of the apartments in the residences are single studio. So you have your own bedroom, bathroom, balcony, kitchen. But we do try to house all of our US students in the same wing. So you've got your own space, but at the same time, you're still with all the other students on the program. Inside the complex itself, there's a lot going on. There's a little mini market at the very bottom. At the top, there's a restaurant with a pool. There's a coffee shop. There's a gym, study room, game rooms, TV rooms, things like that. So there's a lot going on, like I said, within the actual complex itself. And as I mentioned before, you're still very connected to the neighborhood. Everything is a 5 to 10 minute walk at most from the residences. Also, typically the farthest students are taking public transportation or taxis is to go downtown. And it's only about 10 minutes away from the residences. So with your student ID, it's only 75 cents to take the bus system anywhere throughout the city. And then if you want to take a taxi, it's about 10 euros to get downtown. So if you're going with multiple students, you can divide that cost. So again, very inexpensive and very easy to travel throughout Nicosia. Last but not least, obviously with COVID, how much independent travel is going to be available still kind of an unknown. But it is a question that students bring up a lot just because Cyprus is an island. They want to know how connected it is to the rest of Europe. Is it easy to travel? It is inexpensive and easy to travel. These are some of the top locations where our students do visit. I have visited a lot of these locations myself. The most expensive flight I've found has been about $150 round trip. But students always find like 30 euro or 40 euro round trip flights to like Prague or Athens or things like that. So it is very connected to the rest of Europe. So this is my contact information. I'll go ahead and hand this over now back to Jennifer. I don't know if there's anything you want to add on your end, but this is the contact info. Feel free to jot it down. If you call that number, the extension 1 rings directly to me. Again, my name is Matt, so reach out to me anytime. And I'll go ahead and open this up for questions as well.
Sure. I think the students might have questions about the academics of the program and kind of what classes are like there. And, I think maybe, I don't know if they want to share what their majors are to get some information that might be specific to their classes.
Yeah.
Is kind of the first question I had. And then the second thing I would love for you to talk about a little bit is like the COVID situation in Cyprus right now, and what what protocols are in place.
Sure. All right. So first, regarding the courses, what I'll do right now is I'll send a link to the courses. So we have, again, over 160 different degrees. So virtually every major we have. So if anybody has any specific questions about courses, I am more than happy to answer them. The standard way that the courses are offered at the university, they're kind of offered in a similar way, I'd say, that night classes are offered in the States. So they typically are 1 day a week, 3 hours long. Oh, sorry, hold on, I direct message that instead of to everybody. So again, yeah, over 400 courses. We offer internships and research opportunities. The university tends to release its course schedule a little bit later, which is why we have links there. And again, I'm going to send this right now. There's a link called the courses typically offered list. That list is essentially courses that are built into the degree pathway. So they're offered every single spring. There's also a link there where you could look at all the courses that were offered last spring. Again, you'll see over 400 courses. You could search by your major. If you find a course there, and say, for instance, this is a course you definitely need to take, in order to go abroad next spring, I definitely recommend letting us know. We'll reach out to the faculty just to verify that that course is definitely going to be offered. We also are able to offer independent studies. So again, if there's a course there and a faculty member comes back to us and says, yeah, that course probably isn't going to be offered, we could then go ahead and ask to run an independent study if it's a course that a student definitely needs. Our faculty tend to be very open to doing independent studies. I haven't had a faculty member tell us no yet. So, so the link I just sent, you'll be able to find the 2 links, the courses typically offered list. And then if you scroll a little bit down, it's the university course schedule list where you could search for the courses that were offered last spring. The course schedule for the spring will probably be available within the next month, I would say. But again, if you find courses on that list, let us know. We can reach out to the faculty just to verify, that they are going to be offered. And then in regard to the second question regarding COVID. So first, in order to get to Cyprus, it's obviously 2 separate procedures. If you are vaccinated, it is a very easy procedure. So there's a flight pass for Cyprus. If you're vaccinated, it's just a form that you fill out with you and you take to the airport. Obviously, okay, so if everybody's vaccinated, it is a very easy process. So as long as you fill out this form, you'll take your vaccination card with you to Cyprus, and it's as simple as that. You do not need to get tested ahead of time. You do not need to get tested upon arrival. Currently, COVID in Cyprus is very, very low. We have a very low positivity rate. It's under 1% of those being tested, and they are testing a lot. They have been since the beginning. They're still masked up a lot, I'd say on average more than we are as a whole in the States. They are still masking up indoors. And if it's a large group outside, they're still masking up as well. Classes are still being held, in person. Again, masks are required. So yeah, as it stands right now, for those that are vaccinated, it's a very easy process to get to Cyprus. You do need to carry your pass with you that you'll get to get into places, because if people aren't vaccinated, they need to be showing a negative test result every 72 hours. So again, you'll carry around the card essentially showing that you were vaccinated, and that's it. So it's a fairly easy process. All right.
There was I just asked you to talk about the research project internships, but also I had a question that was a direct question that I think everybody would be interested in terms of the application process. I was asked if it was just through Wellesley. I would say the first part of it is through Wellesley. And then you do need to fill out information on the application portal for UNIC, but I would say so long as you're in good standing and have a 2.5 GPA, our understanding is that they'll accept any student that we recommend.
Correct. Yeah. So your first step, obviously, be approved through you all. And then, yeah, as long as you're accepted on our end, it's more of a formality. You just need to fill out some personal information, and then we'll process your application as well. You do not need to pay the application fee that is listed there. So yeah, then you'll actually be processed. You'll get your acceptance email after you complete our application, typically within 24 hours. Then you'll get a call from me to go over kind of your next steps, a couple of different documents, very simple things that you'll need to complete before you get abroad. And then I see two questions. So one, can I go back to this slide about the apartments? Yes. All right, let me share my screen again.
That's definitely a step up from Wellesley Housing.
The housing is beautiful. So when they first built those, I was shocked, and I was like, if only I waited a couple more years. It is. It's beautiful housing. So the pictures on the right are renderings. They haven't changed these slides. Our in-person handouts have the new pictures, and I'll be honest, they are nicer than the renderings are too. Yeah, it's beautiful, and it is nice. So we were planning to move all the housing to our single studios pre-COVID. But obviously right now with having your own space, it's important. So obviously it was serendipitous for us. It worked out really nicely. And I don't know if there was any specific question. I'll leave this slide up for 30 seconds or so. But if you have a specific question about the housing or any of this stuff, just let me know. Just chat me. And then while this is up, I'll just kind of explain our research projects. So it's actually a mandate from the Senate at the university that every department has to offer internships and research opportunities. So we definitely do those on a student by student basis. So the way the process works, once a student applies on our end, they're accepted. They reach out to us, typically to me, or to our admissions team as a whole. They let us know what their interest is. So that's one thing. We need an unofficial transcript, so just like a screenshot of your grades, and then a resume as well. And then we'll reach out to the department to see if there's any fits for research or for interning. And then we reach back out to the student and we say, okay, this is what we have found. This is what the department is offering. X, Y, and Z. Do any of these interest you? If so, we'll then put them in touch with the faculty member to, confirm that, everybody's on the same page. So our internships, we are able to do for credit or not for credit, depending on what you're looking for. So I'll go ahead and unshare my screen again now. I hope that was useful. Right, slide, research. All right, any other questions or anything else you'd like me to touch on?
Okay.
All right,
and then I will send this recording around afterwards. And if you've got any questions, Wellesley students, about the Wellesley process, please get in touch with me. I'm jthomas@wellesley.edu. There was one last question about the application, and I was typing, but I might not get through typing. You would do the proposal to study away first and then apply on the UNIC portal, on the semester in Cyprus portal.
All right, and then lastly, I am putting my my email in the chat as well. So if you ever want to reach out to me directly, we could set up a time to chat on the phone, to Zoom, or if you just have a couple quick questions, we could certainly email back and forth as well. As I said, I'm an alum of the program, so I'm always happy to chat anytime.
Great, thanks so much, Matt.
All right, have a great day. Thank you everybody for coming.